Hi guys, it's Denny. Alrighty, today we're gonna have yet another discussion topic. Well, nothing major is happening in my balcony. I'm just waiting to move. But I do have these topics in mind, which might prove to be helpful for some of you, hopefully. So today we're gonna discuss about orchids being deceiving. And after a few years of growing orchids, I did reach the conclusion that everything regarding orchids themselves, orchid growing, people who grow orchids, stuff you find on the internet and so on, it can be very, very deceiving. I'll show you some examples of what I mean, and I hope you'll find them interesting. We'll first talk about how they can be deceiving, and then how information can be deceiving and people can be deceiving and so on. And it's not about wrong information, it's simply the fact that stuff are not always as they appear. So when we say plants, we usually think of a lot of greenery, a lot of leaves and so on. So in our minds, inevitably a healthy orchid needs to be absolutely green, needs to have leaves, and so on. But then there comes a time when our orchid does something really peculiar. One of the things it can do is to lose all its leaves. And I do get quite a few questions from my viewers regarding leaf falling and what does it mean, and if it's normal, and if their orchid will die. Well, there are certain species which go through a dormant cycle, pretty much like the deciduous trees that you might encounter outside in your environment. Now, falling of the leaves is indeed something pretty dramatic, however, not for all orchids. Some of them really are supposed to do that, and even if they might look dead, it proves that they're actually just preparing for some blooms. And this is quite the treat. After you get scared of your orchid losing leaves, you get this wonderful bloom. So there are quite a few species which do this. So the first thing to do is know what orchid you're growing. Look on your name tag and then Google it. Or if you don't know, if it doesn't have any tags, look at the flower and try to see what family it's from and then do your research, or ask somebody who actually grows orchids. You can either go on a forum, on a blog, on the internet, on YouTube, ask me and all the other growers who make videos on YouTube. Following the same example, there are orchids which lose their leaves totally before starting to grow a new growth. Again, this is a normal cycle for the orchid, and the one that I have in my hands right here is a catasetum orchid. All of them do this. So again, it's up to you to figure out what orchid you have and see if what your orchid does is normal. So this is a happy case. However, it can work the other way around as well. So orchids might look pretty well, they might have beautiful blooms when in fact they're really not that healthy. So let's take a look at another example. So there are those orchids which produce quite a lot of flowers, beautiful blooms, beautiful buds, everything seems to go well. However, this really doesn't mean that your orchid is healthy. There's a great chance it's healthy, but it's not always the case. And here's one of my orchids which is sick. I believe she has a virus. I will not go into the subject because I did discuss about it, and you have the link below if you want to see that video and you missed it. So this orchid is really not that healthy. This might not be the best example to show you because there are orchids which lose all of their roots or have a dying root system but still manage to bloom. I think the most prone orchid to do this is the Phalaenopsis, and what do you know, it's the most famous orchid, and pretty much everybody when they start the orchid journey, they start with a Phalaenopsis. So you have a great chance to actually have beautiful blooms and actually have a pretty sick plant. This has a logic behind it actually. Phalaenopsis orchids, as I was mentioning in the other video that I posted these days, are man-made hybrids. And when it comes to this subject, you might know that people go for productivity rather than, let's say, quality. It happens with vegetables as well. It actually happens with orchids as well. Phalaenopsis being man-made, they went for productivity in regards of flowers. However, this orchid is actually capable to bloom herself to death. She can bloom even if she is sick. It will not mean that she will survive for long periods of time like this, but yeah, she can definitely bloom while she is sick. So in this instance, you can see that things might appear to be going well when in fact the orchid is starting to suffer. So you kind of need to look for other signs of suffering. This is a totally different subject. If you are interested in this, just let me know down below and I'll direct you to a different video, or try to answer your question with a comment. And there are actually many ways in which orchids can be rather deceiving, but you might have noticed in the two examples that there is a perfectly logical explanation for all that's happening. and it's really up to us to find it. And just because we don't find it right away doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So now I'm going to show you some other examples of how this orchid hobby can be deceiving and how there is actually a perfectly logical explanation for everything. So most of us gather our information from forums, from articles, from people on the internet in general, YouTube, and so on. However, sometimes people are not necessarily as honest as they should be. So I have an example here. I'm not gonna say if what I will show you is right and wrong. Everybody's free to choose what they want to believe, how they want to grow your orchids, but I just want to exemplify the deceiving part of things. So I have here a beautiful Cattleya orchid. She has beautiful blooms, and lo and behold, I am keeping her in water. You can see how the root system looks like. You can see that there's no media here, just water. Now, I can go ahead and tell you this orchid has been grown in water since forever, and you would believe me if you didn't know me, if you didn't know I post every single day, right? Well, somebody can actually do the very same thing on a forum, or just post this picture on the internet without actually giving explanations. You might know this orchid has been recently unpotted because I need to move and I need to get rid of spider mites. Long story. However, this orchid actually produced the buds quite before I transplanted it in water, and all the growth you see with this orchid, as healthy as it might be, did not happen in water. It happened in proper media. So the fact that this one bloomed in water has nothing to do with the fact that she might or might not like water. So this is just an example of how things can be deceiving. Again, I'm not saying this is right or this is wrong. It's really up to you. However, I'm gonna show you another very hilarious case of how something can be absolutely deceiving. So a while ago, I saw on Twitter a picture that was retweeted by somebody as beautiful, gorgeous. I'll try to find that picture and show you on the screen. So as you can see, there are a whole bunch of orchids which are growing, they appear to be growing in plastic bags. And what do you know? All of them are beautifully in bloom. And I have to admit, if I would be a beginner and had no idea how to grow orchids, I would go right now and put all of my orchids in bags. Because look at this picture, isn't it wonderful? Aren't those orchids really healthy? Well, yeah. For a trained eye that I have right now after my experience, I can easily tell those orchids are just purchased. They have not grown in those plastic bags. One of the things that gives it away is, well, the whole multitude of orchids in bloom at the same time. I have 150 orchids. I can assure you, not all of them will ever be in bloom at the same time. They have different growing patterns. They have different growth speeds and growth rhythms and so on. You cannot have a Miltoniopsis in bloom in the same environment in which you will have a Cattleya orchid in bloom. They are totally different plants that bloom in various conditions. So you need to have them separate, not next to each other, to actually bloom them at the same time. And if you've ever purchased orchids, you know how they look like. You know how they are displayed with those perfect straight spikes, which in the picture, I don't see any stake. Do you? Yeah. So you kind of know how they look like when you purchase them, all perfect and everything. When you grow them, they kind of look totally different. They have more pseudobulbs. They're in bloom in a totally awkward angle or a totally different side of the orchid, not smack in the middle, and so on. So for a trained eye, that picture is as fake as, I don't know, you choose something fake. But for a beginner, it can be so deceiving, and it can make you think that orchids grow in bags beautifully. So you might just go ahead and unpot your orchids and put them in bags. And the list can actually go on. If you search for orchids on the internet, you will see pictures with all sorts of weird planters in which orchids look beautiful and they seem to thrive. Well, trust me when I say that they did not grow in that container. They were just put there for the picture. And I can go on this subject quite a lot. Let us remind ourselves of Just That Ice Orchids, which buys their orchids from a proper nursery, sells them to you, they don't water them with ice, sells them to you and tells you to water them with ice, although those orchids never saw ice. But you see the video, you see the seller, you trust them, right? Yeah. You shouldn't really. But anyway, you get the idea how pictures or people or stuff in general can be deceiving. What is the best attitude you can have? Research for yourself. Filter it through your logic and research it first on multiple sources, not just one. Visit multiple forums, watch multiple videos and see who has the most logic, what sounds better to you. And in a little while, you'll have your answer. Given, if you're a beginner, it's hard to find the proper answer. But trust me when I tell you, there's always a logical explanation behind things. And you'll find it if you search for it. But let's take another example, because I have another one. Okay, so here is my Zygopetalum orchid. Doesn't he look great? He looks absolutely fantastic. He's such a healthy orchid, no pests, right? Well, I wouldn't bet my money on it. Now I'll tell you why I want to discuss about this guy. If you know me for a while, you know I battle spider mites for quite a while. One of the suggestions that some of my viewers gave me was to use rainwater, because it just so happens that when they grow orchids outside of their house, or when they shower them with rainwater, or when they receive rain from above, it seems that all the spider mites and all the problems of the world disappear. So it might seem that rainwater has a bad effect on spider mites. Well, it's not really the case. Let's think about it. What is rainwater? Well, it's what it says it is. It's just water without minerals, because it comes from the evaporation. It's practically a distilled water. So it's pure water without any type of minerals in it. How can this actually kill spider mites? I tried detergents, I tried everything. If those toxins did not kill spider mites, how can water just kill spider mites? Now, there's something else happening here. The logical explanation is, one, if you're growing your orchids outside, naturally you might have predators for the spider mites, such as ladybugs. You don't necessarily see the ladybug eating the spider mite, but she might be there for an hour and she might clean up the place. That's one thing. But most importantly, the second thing, rainwater actually washes away the spider mites from the plant itself. Now, this can keep the population low, and this is what I'm doing with my plant. Every time I water it, I shower it to keep the population low. This, however, does not rid me of the problem, because there's one thing we always forget: eggs. So let's take a look under the microscope and see if my plant is actually as pest-free as it seems. So from the start, I happened to put my microscope on an egg. That little red dot you see there on the upper part, now the middle is an egg. And look, there's an adult. Was not expecting an adult, but there we go. Let's continue and see what we can find. Yeah, the leaf is not very infested. But yeah, let's take another leaf. There we go. That's another egg right in the middle of the leaf there in the crease. You can see it. And yeah, let's look some more. And the good thing is that the vast majority of the leaf is clean, but from time to time I do see those eggs. And yeah, that's because they're sticky. They don't come off that fast. So as you can see, even if my leaf is almost clean, there are the eggs. And what will happen is that once I stop showering my orchid with every watering, the eggs will hatch, and then I will have another outbreak. In about a month or two, I will visibly see the spider mites. Even though right now I don't see new damage, that's because there aren't enough mites to actually cause any visible damage. But this, however, does not mean that they're not there, and it certainly does not mean my problem is solved by showering. And the last example that I want to show you comes from my ICU. I'll show you what I mean. So a few days ago, I showed you this orchid which looked quite great when I received it. It had available eyes, it had an available root, but all of a sudden things started to go bad. You can see a pseudobulb going yellow, and this pseudobulb is starting to go yellow as well, so this orchid is on the verge of death. What is the cause? How can I explain this? This orchid is not rotten. I made sure that I didn't rot it in any way. It does not have pests, it doesn't have anything. There is no logical explanation for the behavior of this orchid. Guess again. So luckily enough, my viewer Ana Maria, who actually gave me this division, told me she has the very same problem with hers. And actually she told me why this happened. So when she ordered this orchid, when she received it, a stake was cutting through the rhizome. And the rhizome actually got infected for her. Now, she gave me this division, which did not seem to be ill at the moment, but I'll show you some pictures right now on the screen. Her orchid, from which this division came from, is suffering from the same fate. It's slowly dying because the infection from the rhizome has actually made its way through the orchid slowly but surely. So my side was affected as well, but it was invisible because it was inside. It was an inside infection. You cannot see these infections until your orchid starts to die. Sadly, it's not like it's a root rot or anything of the sort. It's a bacterial infection from inside the plant that came through the way of that stake, which was put through the rhizome, and now it's affecting both orchids, even though my orchid looked quite healthy when I received it, and now it's declining without any reason. It has a very good reason for it, and I'm happy I found it. I know this orchid will die, but at least I know why it's dying right now. And the list can actually go on. If I were to talk about all of the examples, I would probably never finish this video, and I really hope I didn't bore you. These are some things that maybe people don't talk about. Maybe people prefer to show you blooms, to make tutorials on how to care for stuff, but I think these types of discussions are equally important because they help you indirectly, let's say. The fact that I'm showing you my examples might at some point come into your mind and help you out in a situation that seems to not have an answer. And for the sake of you sleeping better at night, just know that there is always a perfectly logical explanation for everything. Sometimes we do not find that explanation. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. However, we're not scientists, so we're gonna do the best we can. And if by these discussions I managed to help you out in a way, then I'm happy, and this is why I'm making these discussions rather than show you some blooms sometimes. And before I go, I just wanted to add something. I don't usually look at these things, but I recently discovered that I hit 19,000 subscribers. Whoa! And actually I saw this yesterday, and today I'm already at 19,100 or something. I'm not sure when this video will be posted, so yeah, those are just some estimates. So, wow, thank you guys so much. This is really overwhelming for me. So, because we're gonna hit the 20,000 subscribers milestone, I'm gonna do something quite pretty for you guys. It's not gonna come right now. It's gonna be when I move out, when I'm settled in. And I thought about it because sometimes I think that I might influence you sometimes, and I hope I'm influencing you guys in a positive way. But you can also influence me more than just asking me questions, or any way you do influence me, but I want to give you the power to properly influence me. So it's going to be something quite interactive. You're going to decide something that will influence me, but you're gonna see what I mean when the time comes. Just be patient. Thank you for sticking with me and for bearing these videos and so on. So yeah, hopefully I'll make better videos when I move out and I have better stuff to show you and so on. But yeah, I'm gonna plan a surprise for you. It's gonna be a celebration of 20K. It's a milestone. It's huge for me. It might not be huge in the world of YouTube, but I don't care. It's huge for me. Thank you so much. So yeah, okay, let's end this video because it's so long. So okay, I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Let me know what you think. Let me know some of your experiences, maybe deceiving experiences or stuff that happened to you that you cannot explain. Maybe we can find some answers. So you know me, I always like to answer your comments as much as time lets me. Sometimes I don't answer right away and I'm sorry for that, but I try. So yeah, feel free to discuss with me anything you'd like in the comment section below. Also, if you'd like to see more orchid videos from me, tutorials, pretty flowers, but also discussions, just subscribe to my channel. I post on a regular basis. If you click on the left side of your screen, you'll be directed to orchidnature.com, where you'll find care sheets, identification sheets, and also you can talk to us in the forum section. And on the right side of your screen, you can click to watch another orchid video. Thank you for joining. I'll see you next time.